Sound test, sound test. Sound test. Hello. Sound test, sound test. Sound test. Hello. Sound test, sound test. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, this is David from
Pig King.
Our new album Evolution is out now.
And yeah, you're the first person here, so. Oh no, we got some more people watching. So I am animating the USS Constitution versus the HMS Guerriere right now. Just thought I'd stream it, let you guys take a look at the animation process.
He excused the impressed Americans among his...
So just let me know if you guys have any questions as to the process. Just generally kind of hanging out. Lazy, what is it, Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. I lose track sometimes. So this right here is this is a what's called a mask. So this actually obscures part of my part of the object that I'm animating, and I can manipulate the mask to reveal or hide things at certain times. So for example, I'm going to drag it this way, and I have it set. I actually need to change that. So that's gonna. I need to go have it go the other way. There we go. So what this does is this is going to slowly, the mask is going to slowly move over, and it's going to slowly reveal the name of the HMS Guerriere there. And I'm going to just repeat the process for the Constitution, so that the end effect is that
the upcoming battle.
Their names are slowly revealed.
Americans among his crew from the battle. Let
that go a little bit, and then I'm going to just reverse the process to re-hide the name, and the name will slowly disappear. Copy that mask. So the bottom of the screen right now is what's called the timeline, and the timeline works by allowing me to set keyframes on it, and when I set those keyframes, that's when something happens in the animation. So I can change position, I can change opacity, I can change feathering, stuff like that. So the end effect of what I just did is that the names of both the Constitution and Guerriere are going to be slowly revealed, like that, and then they're going to slowly disappear, like that.
Just the impressed Americans among his crew from the battle. The Guerriere maneuvered.
Okay, now I need a... Let me put some text on here. It's kind of crude, but it works. And then I'm going to slap down an arrow to show what direction the wind is moving. So this was one of the pivotal battles in the War for 1812. This was a this was a surprise to both sides, actually, because neither side expected the American Navy to be able to challenge the Royal Navy at sea, and that's exactly what happened. In the War of 1812, the Navy actually kicked a lot of ass, and the Army got its teeth kicked in, which was kind of the opposite of what they were expecting to happen. They were expecting a very easy land victory in Canada, and they ended up getting their asses handed to them. And then they were expecting to basically annoy the British at sea, but they ended up actually kicking some major British ass. particularly the privateers. Privateers in the War of 1812 seized, I want to say, something like 500 British ships or something like that. And they seized an incredible amount of British ships. Okay, so what I'm showing here is so that at the start of the battle, both sides attempted to take what's called the weather gauge, which is where they basically tried to get upwind of the other so that they would have the wind on their side and could sail downwind into the opponent, basically giving them more maneuverability. And neither side was able to take it. So the Guerriere here maneuvered. So I'm going to set position. First I'm going to set rotation.
We're to take the weather gate.
I'm going to rotate it. And then I'm going to move it up.
Going upwind to have...
Just move it up like this. There we go. And the end effect is that whenever it hits these keyframes here at the bottom, it's going to first rotate and then move up.
Maneuver to take the weather gauge. Going upwind to have the wind on her side. The Constitution match.
And as I say, the Constitution match. The Constitution is going to just do the same.
The Constitution match.
It's actually a very like basic After Effects stuff is very simple. Like it's not till you get into the more advanced stuff that things actually get a little complex. It maneuvered up here, and the end result is that they stayed parallel.
To take the weather gauge, going upwind to have the wind on her side. The Constitution matched, and Guerriere could not take it.
Okay, I actually want this to disappear after that bit. So I'm going to set the opacity.
Next, the Guerriere's captain.
So that's 0.
Next, the Guerriere's captain instead chose to fire as he went.
I think I'm going to need to set up a camera for this. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend... Oh, what'd I do? There we go. I'm going to extend this background. I'm going to just copy it and move it up as well. So we should have like a overlaid... Just so there's more background above. Next I'm going to set up a camera. That's a relatively simple process. Just create a new camera. And then I'm going to set a null object for it to follow. So basically I'm just setting the camera up. And setting the object is going to follow. And then I can move this object around and the camera moves with it. So that's how I'm able to manipulate where the camera goes and what it shows. Okay, so that's... Okay.
Wind on her side.
I love Disturb.
The Constitution matched, and Guerriere could not take it. Next...
Okay, so it was unable to take the weather gauge. And these should then fade out. Okay, those fade out. I'm going to shift the camera to follow it. So the camera needs to transition upwards. So I'm just going to set its position.
Instead chose to fire as he went.
Shift it upwards. Hold on. Oh, I forgot to make these 3D objects. Okay, that kind of creates a problem. Oh, okay, I can fix it. Good. I always forget to do that, and it always creates a big issue. And it's kind of complex why it does that, but it has to do with the way that After Effects handles certain objects. And if it handles the objects as a 3D object, then it basically keeps track of it in 3 dimensions. If it doesn't, then it just keeps track of it relative to the camera. And when I change cameras or move cameras, because it's keeping track of it relative to the camera, that creates a huge problem. For some effects. For some effects, you actually want it. I know that's probably like a really shit explanation, but it's the best I can do. Okay, I'm now going to shift this camera. Oh, yep, see, they're shifting with the camera. Okay. That's why. Shift the lines. Okay, so now they should not shift with the camera anymore. Okay, one isn't. What's going on? There we go. The camera is going to shift up to follow them.
Captain instead chose to fire as he went.
And as I'm saying that, I want these to shift. I want them to rotate and begin chasing each other again. And let me know if you guys have any questions as for, as to the animation process as I'm doing it.
To fire as he went.
I want these to rotate back. Okay. Actually want that set at 0. And that also set at 0. So in the left there, I can actually go in and I can set values manually instead of just dragging things around. And that makes doing like precise movements pretty... It makes it very easy to do precise movements.
Have the wind on her side. The Constitution matched, and Guerriere could not take it. Next, the Guerriere's captain instead chose to fire as he went, maneuvering.
Okay. And I actually want one of these to be a little bit higher. So they can pull up alongside each other a bit more easily. I'm going to set this one to be... Okay, that's not what I wanted. Set the Guerriere a little bit lower.
Have the wind on her side. Instead chose to fire as he went,
Okay, now time for some special effects. So I'm going to go find my cannon shot effect. Oh, did not mean to do that. Cancel that. Okay. This is actually the same effect I used for rifles leveling and shooting and stuff. But I'm just going to mask part of it again. So hide part of it, and I'm going to hide where the rifles are. So what we should be left with is just the...
Maneuvering away from the Constitution.
The bangs, the cannon
The
fire.
Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot.
Okay, set that to fire backwards. And now it should look like the Guerriere is firing backwards.
Away from the Constitution. The Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot.
Okay. I don't want to edit the mask. I'm going to edit the... See if that works.
Maneuvering away from the Constitution. The Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot. Two cannonballs.
It still looks like it's not quite centered on the Guerriere. This mask is being annoying. It's getting in the way. Okay. We're just going to remove it. Okay, that's much easier to position now. Okay.
Maneuvering away from the Constitution. The Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot. Two cannonballs per cannon.
Cool. I might want to see about doing Because I do have a previous cannon shot effect that I used before. Cannon effects. Cannon impact water. Cannon round. Yeah, I could probably do that. So I'm actually going to create projectiles now, and I'm going to have them flying between the different ships.
Maneuvering away from the Constitution.
Let's go ahead and mask this first. For reals this time.
The Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot.
Right, there we go.
2 cannonballs per cannon.
Looks good to me. Now let's create some projectiles. Bit big. Bit bigger than what I'm going for. I might actually not make projectiles. Because looking at it, it looks like it's gonna have to go like at a weird angle here, and I think that's gonna actually look kind of janky, and it's also gonna take a while for me to animate that. So I might just decide not to do that. I don't think it detracts very much from the video to not have that. Nope. What do I need now? Okay, so no more cannon rounds. Let's just have them. So what happened in the battle was the Constitution then pulled alongside the Guerriere and unleashed a lot of fire. So that'll probably be what happens next. Let's see.
Maneuvering away from the Constitution. The Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot. 2 cannonballs per cannon. Then, pulling alongside...
Okay, so select the Constitution. Transform, position.
At the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10 yards.
Oh. I'm animating text. Oops. Let's do position.
At the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides.
There we go. And at this point, I want the camera to zoom in on the two of them. I also want the cannon fire to stop, because otherwise it's going to cause some issues. I'm just going to set the opaquity to 0, so there's still going to be cannon fire rendered, it's just not going to show. Should work fine. Let's select the camera. Where's my camera? Oh, there we go. Null objects.
At just 10 yards.
Probably wanted to zoom in a little bit
loaded
before that.
Double shot. 2 cannonballs per cannon. Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing...
Okay, so we zoom in.
Broadsides at just...
And I want that. So it kind of looked like it was sliding along diagonally there. So I'm going to have to fix that. Let's select... there we go. So right before it begins to move, I do want it to shift, to rotate.
Cannonballs per cannon. Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she
Okay, it rotates a little bit too soon there, so let's fix that. Okay.
the Guerriere, Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she unleashed
Awesome.
crushing broadsides at just
they
10
need to fix
yards.
those cannon effects now, but that's fine. They're just not fading out quite as early as or they're fading out too late. You need them to fade out a little bit earlier. Okay, so I have this rotates, rotate it back to 0. There we go. Let's take a look at what we have so far.
There were 456 men.
Okay, so that's already I can see a problem. So this needs to fade in at some point. Or I can just drag it below. Yeah, that'll work. Just drag it below the other layers.
There were 456 men and 56 guns on the Constitution, compared to 272 men with 49 guns aboard the Guerriere. The Guerriere's captain was so confident in the upcoming battle, he excused the impressed Americans among his crew from the battle. The Guerriere maneuvered to take the weather gauge, going upwind to have the wind on her side. The Constitution matched, and Guerriere could not take it. Next, the Guerriere's captain instead chose to fire as he went, maneuvering away from the Constitution. The Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot, 2 cannons per cannon. Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10 yards. A short-range knife.
Okay, cool. So that's what we have so far. It's not too bad. So let's fix that cannon issue first of all. Let's go ahead and fix it, because right now they're just kind of hanging there and just kind of floating there. See, like right there, you can see the gunfire, the flashes. Let's go ahead and fix that. I think I'm just going to fade them out.
Pulling along.
Yeah, so as the camera shifts, I need to have those fade out. Let me find... where would it be? For anyone just joining us, I'm animating the battle between the USS Constitution and HMS Guerriere in the War of 1812. Or Guerriere, sorry. I always mispronounce it. So let me find my gunfire effect. Here it is. And I'm just going to grab that fade out I did earlier and move it up to where the camera moves.
Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10.
Okay, so as soon as they pull up alongside each other, I want more of those gunfire effects. I'm going to grab the effects. And, I'm going to want them to be kind of wider. I think I'm going to set it like that. So these are this kind of weird looking thing. The block in the screen is the rifles. Because normally this effect, it's where I'm animating infantry shooting at each other. So those are meant to look like rifles. They're kind of janky 2D rifles though. Okay, so I'm going to set those there, and I'm just going to create another set right there, and let's see how this looks. I'm going to shift the timelines down to make it... Okay, that's not what I meant to do.
Balls per can. Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10 yards.
Okay, so those are a bit big, because I need to fit, you know... I need both sides to look like they're firing their cannons. And right now, those fireballs are so big, I wouldn't be able to fit the Constitution firing.
Broadsides at just 10 yards.
what I can do, actually, is I can just drag these... Then just reduce their layer directly below the ships. That hides the rifles.
Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10...
Okay, so these need to move down some.
Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10 yards. A short-range knife fight ensued between the two for 15 minutes until the Guerriere's main mast...
Cool. So now I just need to do the reverse to Constitution. I'm just going to take him, I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. I'm going to drag him over this way. And I want to offset it a little bit so it looks like the cannons are firing in a different pattern.
Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at...
Okay, so the top set needs to fade in, because right now it just kind of... The rifles are just kind of floating there. I need to fix that.
Sides at just...
Is this Nickelback? Oops, sorry guys, I didn't mean to subject you to this.
Broadsides at just...
This is just Pandora, I swear, it's not my fault.
Sides at just 10 yards. A short-range knife fight ensued.
And let me know if you guys have any questions.
For 15 minutes until the Guerriere's main mast fell. This tangled her lines and left her unable to maneuver. With their...
Okay, so I like the flash effects now. Definitely looks like a battle. I want some particle effects in there too, though. So let's try to grab some gunshot effects and see if we can't get some smoke. Ooh, another thing I'm definitely going to need to do. I want the Constitution's fire to follow the Constitution, because next thing that's going to happen is the Constitution is going to maneuver in front of the Guerriere and fire a long ways through her, called braking. And that's actually what swung the battle in the Constitution's favor. So I need the gunfire, the flashes, the muzzle flashes, to move with the Constitution. So I'm going to set them to, I'm going to pin them to the Constitution. Meaning they will move when the Constitution does. See, let me make sure I'm... Uh-oh. Oops. Okay. There we go. Got it. Yeah, this is Nickelback. That's what I thought. I'll spare you guys. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Nickelback gets a lot of hate they don't deserve, but they definitely not my favorite band. Like, I could think of way better. This is the Disturbed channel, so,
Unleashed crushing broadsides at just
Nickelback.
10 yards. A short-range knife fight ensued.
So that caused my rifles to really move. Kind of weird. Whatever, just an After Effects kind of weirdness.
A short-range knife fight ensued between the two for 15...
Alright, let's see about getting some smoke now. Gunshot effect, here we go. I definitely need to redo this effect, because this is one of the effects I made when I was just starting out. The gunshot effect, so it kind of looks... It's kind of janky, it's kind of homemade. Okay, let's see here. That's still way too big. I'm just going to scale this down. See what that looks like.
Between the two for 15 minutes until the Guerriere's...
I think I'm just going to leave that as is. I don't like that effect. It's kind of thing about After Effects. You just kind of have to play around with things. It's kind of a push and pull.
Went maneuvering away from the Constitution. The Constitution held its fire and loaded double shot, two cannonballs, and then pulling
alongside the Guerriere.
she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10 yards.
Alright, so let's fix the transparency issue I have with the other set of rifles. As they start to come in, see, they start to phase in at the bottom left of the Guerriere. A little bit too early.
Broadsides at
set them to be invisible prior to when I need them. Okay, there we go. Easy enough fix.
broadsides at just 10 yards. A short-range knife fight ensued between the two for 15 minutes until the Guerriere's main mast fell. This tangled her lines and left her unable to maneuver. With their lines tangled together, both ships briefly made ready to board until the Constitution's sailors managed to cut their way free with axes. Now the Constitution.
Okay, so now the Constitution's moving again. So let's set... I want those rifle shots to stop as the Constitution moves. Or I want the Guerriere shots to stop, because the Constitution's still firing. And the Constitution is going to move to the front of the Guerriere. Really? Okay, so I'm just gonna have to like totally redo the cannon effect. That's fine. As you can see, they're just kind of floating there in space. It's not what we want.
Constitution.
Okay. Right before we start to move, I'm gonna have to phase those out. Okay, so right where they would become visible.
2 for 15 minutes until the Guerriere's main mast.
Right now it's moving a little bit slowly. I want it to move.
Mast fell. This tangled her lines and left her unable.
Wait, did it not? Oh, I think I messed it up. I messed it up. That's where it should start moving.
Constitution moved to the front of the Guerriere.
Okay, so there we go. Now the Constitution moves. And I want it to move in like an arc. So I'm going to grab it here and pull it into more of an arc.
Free to maneuver, the Constitution moved to the front of the Guerriere.
I want the camera to shift with it. So let's go ahead and grab our camera.
Constitution.
Okay, got the camera. And shift it this way.
A short-range knife fight ensued between the two for 15 minutes until the Guerriere's main mast fell. This tangled her lines and left her unable to maneuver. With their lines tangled together, both ships briefly made ready to board until the Constitution's sailors managed to cut their way free with axes. Now free to maneuver, the Constitution moved to the front of the Guerriere and began to...
Okay. So I want it to start rotation. And what? Oh, that's the null object. Hold on. Wrong object. So start rotation there. And then let's end our rotation when we're at the front. So what should happen is we should then end up. Let's just do 90. Like that. And I actually want this to be forward a little bit more. There we go.
Then, pulling alongside the Guerriere, she unleashed crushing broadsides at just 10 yards. A short-range knife fight ensued between the two for 15 minutes until the Guerriere's main mast fell. This her lines and left her unable to maneuver. With their lines tangled together, both ships briefly made ready to board until the Constitution's sailors managed to cut their way free with axes. Now free to maneuver, Constitution moved to the front of the Guerriere.
Okay, cool. Looks good. Well, other than the, flying blocks. Other than the errors. Now this is a good song. What is this? Diamond Eyes by Shinedown. Okay, so now I need to grab the, those cannons. Let me find them here. And I need them to go ahead and fade out. So I don't have these big blocks. Yeah, see, like right there. Alright, cool. For those of you just joining us, I'm animating the battle between the USS Constitution and HMS Guerriere. It's part of the War of 1812. If you guys have any questions about the process, just let me know.
The Constitution moved to the front of the Guerriere, and
I think it's gonna... Oops.
And began to...
Okay, let's set those to fade back in.
To rake her.
Oh, wait, nope, bad idea. Actually, I think that'll work fine. I just have to reposition those. So, right there. I think that'll work. It might not. We'll see. Let's see.
Constitution moved to the front of the Guerriere and began to rake her, firing...
Hey, it worked. I was able to reposition the cannons like I needed them to make it still look good. Actually,
and began to rake her, firing cannonballs long ways. This was particularly deadly, as most damage from cannonball...
Cool. I think that's working out. Alright, well, I'm actually about to call it and stop animating now. Thanks for tuning in, anyone who's still here. Yeah, if you guys like this, I might make this a more common occurrence. But this should just kind of give you a little taste of what the animation process is like. Bye.